Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Depends the part of the world you're joining us from. I remember as Chika Austin, and like we earlier announced, we have analysis between Somaliland, which is um and the Biafra. We did publish that, and I have with my Mazi Kelechi is the writer, family writer. For those of writer, is one of the strong platforms that have been in for the rest of the Mazi and global development, political economy, and all you need to know as the guy. Mazi,
Okay, thank you, Mazi. Good evening from here. Good evening, Biafrans.
yeah, you're welcome.
I don't know if my voice is coming out clearly.
Loud and clear. We are
okay.
Loud and
Okay,
clear.
thank you. Thank you
for purpose of clarity, program we are going to start here, and I'm the and I have my wonderful issue. I believe must have been going that. So Mazi Kelechi, we are going to start with Somaliland because that is the center of where our discussion is going.
Yes.
And we hope that this program cannot take more than hours because of the focus of the topic. And Mazi Kelechi, would that the names that popular, very few number of persons know about Somaliland. So can we have a brief description of Somaliland? Where is this? And what kind of race are finding that? Can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. Like he said, my name is Mazi Kelechi Chukwuezi. Tonight, I appreciate the opportunity to speak on your platform. So to answer the question, where is Somaliland? Where is Somaliland? Many of us may have heard about a country in Africa called Somalia, but we may not have heard about Somaliland. So Somaliland is a self-governing country in Somalia. It used to be a part of Somalia, but they declared self-independence in 1991 to break away from the larger part of Somalia. So Somaliland basically is the northern part of Somalia, just like we have the northern and southern part of Nigeria. So Somalia is like the north in Somalia. So that is where Somalia is located. Somaliland is located, and we can note that Somaliland or Somalia as a whole is located at the right tip of the Horn of Africa, where we call the Horn of Africa, close to the Red Sea, the Indian Ocean, and the Strait of Man the Bad. So these areas are strategic areas that international trade takes place within the maritime areas between Africa and Middle East and Asia. So that is where we can find Somaliland in the present African map. Thank you.
Okay, let's get something clearly, Mazi, because for the purpose of our viewers and our listeners, we have an issue of breakaway in Somalia.
Yeah.
I mean, Somaliland leading from Somalia. Are there areas of great dissimilarity? I'm talking about when you look at the demography, the population of the people, if you look at the cultural perspective, if you look at even political philosophy, what are those areas that made the people to be difficult in terms of being one?
Okay. In terms of similarities with the Biafra.
No, I'm talking about when you look at Somalia
Okay.
as a country, you have a breakaway Somaliland.
Okay.
And I believe these people have a similar religion, that is Islam. What are the factors you can point out today? These are factors that made them like that the Somaliland will say, no, we are not compatible with the southern part of. So I want to find out those areas of similarity.
Okay. Okay. Now I get your question. So okay, the whole issue in Somaliland, or why the factors why Somaliland declared themselves, a breakaway, a unilaterally a self-governing entity from bigger Somalia is there is a historical marginalization, or should I say political marginalization of the Somaliland, the people of Somaliland. That's the northern part of Somalia. So, but to give you a good historical background, we have to look back to the pre-colonial or the colonial history of the entity, the coming of the entity called Somalia. Okay, so this entity called Somalia was not Somalia before. In 1884, Britain, or the British government, British colonial government, established a protectorate, a British protectorate in the northern part of what will later become Somalia. And then the southern part of Somalia was controlled by the Italian protectorate. So there was this incompatibility, the factor of incompatibility, cultural incompatibility. Though the northern part of Somalia were Muslims, or are Muslims, but they are not they are not ideologically inclined like the southern part, who are basically Sharia inclined, who want Sharia.
Sorry for the interjection. Let us get something clear. When you talk about northern part of Somalia, you're talking about Somaliland. Am I correct?
Yes, yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. The northern part of Somalia is now Somaliland, because we have to address them with their current status. So, we given that pre-colonial, given that colonial rule of Britain, just like in Nigeria, for example, in 1960, Britain decided to amalgamate the northern part and the southern part of Somalia. So these are, remember, these are two distinct people. These are culturally,
Okay,
they
so
are
let
not
us
compatible. Okay.
let get something clearly. You stated that in 1800 there were two colonial managers
Yeah.
managing this defined territory.
Yes.
The land, which is northern Somalia, was managed by Britain, was governed by Britain, while
Yes.
southern part by Italy. And you further stated that in 1960 there was a amalgamation of the two of them. Am I correct?
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Now, by Britain. So, does it mean that in 1960, what actually led to the factor that the Italian control of southern Somalia became so weak for Britain to now amalgamate both Italian interest and British interest? Was it as a result of the Second World War that led to the weakening of Italy, that led to Britain having upper hand? I want that area because what we are discussing, we have a broader listeners so that we can get a lot of peace
Okay.
in here.
Yes, you are right. The Second World War weakened Italy's economy back home. So many, just like Germany, many of those European countries were facing economic hardship, recovering from the war and all these things. So Italy became so weak that Britain have to come up. Britain have to do something as a world power at that time, as a significant world power. UK or Britain amalgamated the two for political control convenience, I would say.
Okay,
So
that's what
that
they
was
did in
how
Nigeria.
Somalia was formed.
Okay, that means exactly what they did in 1940 in
Yes,
Nigeria.
exactly.
Political convenience was
Yes,
exactly eradicated in Somalia.
yes,
Ab initio, historically speaking, Somalians were one people. It was colonial factor that brought them together, just like Nigeria, where we have also colonial factor that brought the people together.
exactly.
Thank you for laying that foundation. It's so important we lay that foundation because of the vastness of our own. We have a lot of people who are from around the world, Africans, Europeans, and you're really doing justice to that. Okay, having established that foundational discourse, let's look at the Somaliland from 1960 of amalgamation, because I believe the amalgamation was meant to unite. The amalgamation was meant to bring a unified Somalia. So, what actually happened between 1960 to 1991 that led to what we have today as a Somalia?
Okay, thank you for the question. Just like we have pointed out, the two distinct culturally incompatible regions, the north and south, were having been amalgamated by the British. There was one thing the British did, just like they did in Nigeria. The British colonial government concentrated or gave the central government control of the central government to the southern part of Somalia. And like I told you, the southern part of Somalia are Sharia ideologically inclined, just like the northern part of Nigeria. So you could see the similarities between Biafra and so this political decision made by Britain, gave rise to further marginalization of the northern Somalilanders. The central
Okay,
government, controlled by the southern Sharia inclined Muslims, we are marginalizing the northern Somalilanders, you know, in political subjugation, political exclusion, just like we have in Nigeria against the Igbo nation. So
Okay,
that was what. Okay.
Mazi, Mazi Kelechi, I really have to kind of bring you a hat here so that you go back and reestablish the information you just passed. So you mean in Somalia in 1960, after the amalgamation,
Yes.
because Somalia, to the best of my knowledge, whether you look at Somaliland or the southern Somalia or what, they, they are almost, am I correct? Are you
Yes.
not
Yeah.
telling us, not telling our audience that what we have in Somaliland is liberal Muslim, if I can use that word? Why what you have in no what you have in northern Somalia are liberal Muslims? Why you have what you have in northern sorry southern Somalia are conservative or fundamental? Am I correct?
Yes, you are. Yes.
Okay. So if the and Britain decide to give power to those who are extreme in Islamic ideology, am I correct?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So I wanted to properly establish because when you look at us, it depends on the colonial event that for us to understand this time played out. Britain also power relegated power or handed over power to the Muslim against the Christians.
Liberal.
Yeah, so you can go on, sir.
Okay. So we having established this disparity. You know, when Britain anywhere Britain goes, they go with their education and system of government, capitalism. So these colonial instruments influenced the Islamic understanding, ideology of the northern part of Somalia, which is today's Somaliland, which gave rise to their liberalization of Islam. You understand?
Okay. Okay.
That was how they
They
got
accepted Western education against those in the South.
exactly,
Oh,
exactly. So the that was the foundation of the disparity between the two regions. So subsequent governments in Somalia continued to maltreat, subjugate, marginalize the northern region, the Somalilanders. Over time, there was a civil war in 1980s, in late 1980s. You know, that civil war saw the overthrow of the then president of Somalia, which is still from the southern part of Somalia, which is the Islamic, the Sharia ideologically inclined north southern part. So when the president was overthrown, uh, the people, there were tension. Just like in Nigeria, we have the coup, the 1966 coup, headed by many soldiers. I wouldn't mention. I would want us to correct the impression that Kaduna and Zogu, it was an Igbo coup. So we have many soldiers in that coup. I mean, in Nigeria. So such overthrow happened in Somalia, that they wanted to change the then government, the then regime, and it was unsuccessful. Civil war broke out, and these people, the northerners, that's the Somalilanders today, we are blamed. We are, the marginalization tripled, just like the Igbos we are suffering today. So
oh,
that was the
oh,
genesis or the factors that led to Somalilanders seeking to break away from the larger Somalia. Thank you.
yeah, so amazing. Thanks so much. I can see because I try to every single fact you are unearthing here. I try to make it properly registered in the and I can vividly uh, assert that there was a coup eight in Somalia which it was tagged Somaliland School. Am I correct?
Yes, you are.
Exactly what happened in the coup of cities in Nigeria, where it was literally called Igbo coup. With
Erroneously, I
yeah,
would say.
yeah, with the aim of subjugating the Igbo people. And because of that, the Somalilanders decided to seek for self-determination,
Yes.
which exactly. So I now understand there are a lot of historical similarity between Somalilanders and the Biafran people. Okay, let's now talk about you just established that fact, one of the strong incidents that led to them establishing or define a state for them. Now let's look at the period they established the state, uh, experiences they had. But before that, uh, while all these things were happening, imagine the harassment, the effort to get the Somalilanders, were there international partners or international support they had? Let us just look from that perspective.
Okay. Why the civil war was raging, the whole thing, the marginalization was going on, there were no significant international attention to the plight of Somalilanders. Why? Because the big factor there, the big game player, Britain is behind the scene directing, just like in Nigeria. So that they prevented major international attention or in look or coming into uh, rescued Somalilanders or even understanding their plight in the Somalian entity. So there were no significant international attention during this period because Britain was managing and controlling the narrative, just like they used BBC against the Igbo nation. So that was what happened. But during the amalgamation in 1960, many nations, including the United States of America, recognized the state of Somalia. Remember, Britain was the architect. Britain amalgamated. So Britain orchestrated the whole game. So with Britain's influence as a world power then, they influenced international attention, towards recognizing the state of Somalia. But during the years of instabilities after their independence, Britain blocked every uh, information going out to the outer world to understanding the plight of the Somalilanders in Somalia. Exactly what's happening to us in Nigeria. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. It is obvious that Britain have uh, done a lot of that in African geopolitics. Obvious, oh, good. So, but let's now look at also the courage, because it's not cause for a subunit to break away from it. It's not an easy cause, and always for such. When Somaliland was recognized to their independence for themselves, what were the actual authorities?
Sorry, I didn't get your question very clearly.
Okay, I said ordinarily when a sub unit or sub entity wants to break out from the wider unit, it
Okay.
always consequences. It always comes
Yeah.
massive measures to get them back to the unit. And I'm asking, when Somalilanders um, declare a state for themselves,
Yeah.
what was the reaction of the government? And what steps did they undermine that project?
Okay. Your question, if I got it very clear, because your voice is kind of breaking. You
Oh,
asked,
somebody.
yeah, you asked why did the central Somalia government could not stop the Somalilanders when they declared self-independence? Am I right?
Of course.
Okay. So yeah, this is the consequences of declaring self-independence, just like Biafra had, was or is uh, state aggression towards the breakaway entity or region. Somalia, at the initial stage, did not recognize that self declared independence from Somalia. So what happened was that they collaborated with UK, with other countries who has already recognized Somalia as a sovereign nation to frustrate any international recognition of that Somaliland as independence or self-declared independence. So from 1991, the Somalilanders conducted a self-referendum and then declared themselves free from Somalia. And in that 1991, that should be May 28th, 1991, they declared that in the self-independence and went up to establish a government. And we all know for us to have a government, an effective government, you must have government institutions such as the military, such as electoral process, electoral institution, such as currency, such as police. So the Somalilanders, having declared themselves free from Somalia, went on to establish those qualities that make up a government, an entity, a sovereign entity. So with that, they were trying to see if they can fit into, the qualities that can attract international recognition. Just like, let me take us back to the Biafra declaration by our eternal leader, Dim in 1967. After the declaration, what happened? We had the Biafran Eastern Consultative Forum dissolved itself and then we are reabsorbed into the Ojuku's, novel government. I will call them novel government. So they now started creating governmental institutions that can enable them qualify to be recognized internationally, because there are yardsticks, there are features that a government must possess for you to be recognized by other states, for you to be able to have equal international relation with other countries. I will mention it as we progress in the discussion. I will mention these qualities. So the Somalilanders, the self-government of Somaliland, went on to establish this criteria,
Features.
yes, for themselves in order to act to suit in for any international recognition. But mind you, those international recognition they were seeking could not come at that time from 1991 till 2025.
Yeah, that and
So,
they keep on going and they keep on going.
and there was something they were doing. They didn't fold their hands. They were doing something, which will bring us to the second phase of this discussion, which is peaceful self-determination. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. I must tell you that we are not just having a program here. I'm being educated. I'm being informed. You're giving me that opportunity to have a free lecture from you, and it's really amazing. And I also believe this is how every single one of us that are watching this program is also feeling, because what you're bringing out is um a scholarly interpretation of historical antecedent and historical event. I must appreciate you for that. Okay, we move on to the, because we have just talked about them establishing and looking at a repressive measure from the central Somalian government, and that never came up. Rather, they tried to use a diplomatic blackmail and a blockade to obstruct that very project. Okay, let's look at how they were able, because like you said, Mazi, Kelechi, 1991 to 26th of December, if I'm not making mistake, 26th of December 2005 is a huge number of years. This is over 3 decades. Am I correct?
Yes.
Is a over 3 decades lifespan, and nobody recognized them, but they kept going. Nobody gave them endorsement. They kept sustaining their belief and ideology. And I believe we have a lot to learn from the,
The
their approaches. Let's just look at factors that sustain them, how they were able to galvanize internal energy. Contrary to our own people we have not evolved to that level mentally to understand that issues, irrespective of the resoluteness, matters a lot. So, can you unearth to us factors that built that internal synergy the platform is?
Okay, thank you for your question. This is a very important aspect of fighting for self-independence, self-determination. When we look at this case of Somalilanders, there are peculiarities and there are differences with ours, the Biafran agitation. So, having declared themselves free, they now had an opportunity to continue moving, continue lobbying for that international attention they are seeking, because for them to have her sovereignty recognized by other states, other sovereign countries must recognize it. For you to be a married man, for you to say I am Mr. This or Mrs. This, you must belong to any of the married organizations. Married people must know that, oh, only a lola wine. You understand? So they must witness your sovereignty. They must witness that union, that quality. They must certify your quality of being a state, of being called a sovereign state. So for the approaches they employed, they were doing something during these 30 something years of seeking international attention or recognition. One of those areas or things they were doing is international awareness. Many of us may not have known. They may not have been popular, to attract major attention, because the global mainstream media, Somalia and her allies, especially in Africa, have been frustrating this the dissemination of information of the quest for self-independence of the Somalilanders in Nigeria, in Africa. So many Africans, many people around the world do not know. There is this deliberate suffocation of information about their quest for international recognition. So this aspect of consistent global awareness, meeting people, governments, having patience to outlive, certain uninterested government that they may have, approached if in the years gone by. For example, we saw a different foreign policy during the Biden administration, the just passed in USA, towards towards Nigeria. So with that giving that, should I say, ambivalent foreign policy from the US, presenting anti-Nigerian, matters may not yield desired result. So
you're quite.
that was what happened to the Somalilanders. Oftentimes they exercised patience. They continued, creating global awareness, meeting the appropriate headquarters, governments, organizations to attract the international attention. Another one is peaceful approach. We have to give these people, the Somalilanders, their flowers, because when you look at them, they constructively created something unseen in the Islamic countries in the whole world. They share border with a very violent Sharia Islamic regime in Somalia. We all know Mogadishu for the past decade has been war-torn. There has been war going on, violent Islamic extremists, just like in the north we have. So for Somalilanders, the self-government of Somaliland, to maintain a peaceful approach towards seeking this international attention for over 30 years without engaging in violent means, without engaging, even though the Houthis, the Yemen factor, the whole Islamic jihadist expansion that surrounds them from Egypt to Ethiopia to Djibouti to Somalia and even to Puntland in the southeastern part of Somalia. We have seen numerous jihadist extremist groups operating in those areas, controlling, even entering into the central government capital Mogadishu in Somalia. So for them to hold on to peaceful approach is something we must borrow a leaf from. So these are areas how they managed to survive, to sustain their agitation for international recognition. So with these leverages, with this discipline, and remember the role played by Western education because of the colonization by the British. So gaining Western education, they became exposed to the antics of British, machinations, because that is what British education will always have value, to know that, okay, see where the white man wants to scam you, they want to exploit you. If you are smart you can decode their machinations. So Western education offers this leverage to any former British colony to understand how British government functions. So that, I think, in my own opinion, that gave them the foresight to understand that avoiding violent means will yield positive results in getting international attention, especially the likes of Israel. We should also note that had it been they involved themselves in violent agitation, mind you, they are Islamic nation. They are predominantly Muslims. So for Israel to have that confidence, that assurance to approach them, to collaborate with them, and to the extent of granting them that request of international recognition, sovereignty, means that they can hold on, they can be a good partner, they can be they can be a good partner to the Western nation or to Israel in tackling the Houthis or Islamic expansionist going on in the Middle East and Horn of Africa.
Okay, that is really amazing, and I think you are fastly going to the area we are going to talk about, the contemporary development as regards to Somaliland, and Somaliland as the case be. But before that, I will urge our listeners, viewers, to try and program, share it. Mazi Kelechi knows what most doctors or professors really might not really have the prowess or the documents to dish out. Uh, so, so that more people can be informed, more as regards to the ideal permutation of what political history is all about, what political economy is all about, what the politics is all about. Okay, Mazi, I'm back to you. You mention about certain factors they adopted that gave them what they have to. One of them strongly, which I want to reiterate on that, uh, the issue of peaceful approach they adopted. Because in most times, in our own case, sometimes people have interpreted peaceful approach with non-work, exhibition of weak to be, all manners of that playing. People believe that when people make noise, when people go rampage, them, that it means you are doing what you're supposed to do for self-determination. So let's just make a comparative analysis between what some people are saying my voice is cracking. I don't know, Mr. Kelechi, are you still having me?
Yes, it's cracking though, but it comes and goes. It comes and but we will continue.
Okay, I don't know why. Okay, so let us have a comparative analysis. Because in several cases have posited that non-violent approach means the beacon of this agitation. People have misinterpreted. People have also looked at that as this. What do you have to say? Look at comparative analysis of Somalilanders and us.
Okay. Comparative analysis or similarities or advantage that we can go from peaceful approach. Like I've explained.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I've explained earlier. Peaceful approach is what I'm trying to get a good description aside the topic, the geopolitical angle. I want to relate it to our own, understanding in the cultural aspect. Peaceful approach is like a when you resort to you want to claim a right. For example, in marriage, in a family, the man maltreats the wife, and the wife wants to tender, claim her right, fight for her right, and she goes out to her in-laws and tenders the matter. That is the best approach. That is called peaceful approach, peaceful conflict resolution approach. But there are other approaches that the wife could have used or resorted to, which is violent approach. And when two wrongs are committed, nobody is right. Two wrongs cannot make a right. So if we are being marginalized, if we are being politically excluded from the Nigerian structure, from the Nigerian government and what have you, should we start violent agitation? Is it wise to engage in violent agitation? Do we have what it takes to sustain such approach. For example, I want to borrow our neighbor in Cameroon, the Amazonians. We could see for the last up to 8 months now, or 1 year, should I say, we have not heard what's going on there. No news is coming out. But we know that they engaged in armed confrontation against the Cameroonian government. So that is a stark difference between what the Somalilanders did, what we are doing, and what the Amazonians did or have done. So we could borrow a leaf or many leaves from these examples. Giving yourself the avenue to be decimated, because what you are looking for, you are fighting for your right. You don't have that right at that time, at that given time. You don't have what it takes to fight it. That is why you are seeking for people's, attention, people's validation, or people's interest, or people's concern for your own right to be, to be secured. So if we should go into armed confrontation, we will lose in both ways. We will not get with the right we are looking for, the self-determination we are looking for from the international communities. They will say, oh, you rushed into armed confrontation, you shouldn't have, fight or went into war with who passed you. But the difference between now and 1967, if we should embark in armed confrontation now, is because the Nigerian government have a stronghold in our territory. You understand? If we should engage in such act, in such approach, it will be disastrous for our people, for our economy, for our territory, and for our lives, and even our self-preservation as a race, as a people. So the Nigerian government, we will give them every excuse, every moral, temerity to crush us, to decimate us. So that is why armed confrontation or violent approach is not advisable in this quest. And that is why when you look at what IPOB is doing, what the leadership is doing, maintaining, on that principle for the last 5 years, our leader has been, in detention. You understand that we are on the right path of history. We are on the right side of history, because when you analyze issues based on what is obtainable in the international, even when you look at psychohistory or what history has, given or prepared before, you'll understand that peaceful approach is the best approach to get your rights secure. Just like I gave an analogy of, reporting to your omonna what your husband or your wife did to you, instead of beating her or retaliating with your husband or to your husband. That is violent approach. It will escalate. You will not get the right, you will still get injured. So this is why peaceful approach is the best approach, and we must learn it. We must go and live and remain consistent, just like the Somalilanders remained till this day. Over 30-something years, they remained resilient, disciplined, stationed ideologically, stationed on that principle of self-determination by non-violent approach. When you look at their neighbors, it gets me out to think that how can these people outside provocations, when you have neighbors surrounding you, violent neighbors surrounding you, poking you, blockading you, giving so many sanctions, especially in trade, you still maintain discipline on yourself, on your peaceful approach. It gives, we should give them kudos and borrow a leaf from them. So this is why it is very important for us to, support this leadership and what they are doing, because that is the best approach. And with consistency, with resilience and focus, we will get what we want through the right partners who are, sympathetic to our cause because of our discipline and consistency. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. And because we have really taken up to an hour talking about historical issues. So we move directly as the contemporary issue. Israel has recognized the state of now, and of course, it is attracting global attention, global reactions. For those who are against and for those who have chosen to be neutral, non-comment. There are countries who have neutrality, non-opinion. You have vocally stated that such is not acceptable by them. And we're also hearing that there are other state actors that are also in line. Some are saying they are reviewing, some are saying they definitely. Let's just see what that means, especially African geopolitics.
Okay.
I hope.
Yeah, I'm trying to, your voice is really breaking, but your
I
question
wouldn't.
is
Yeah, I think it should be from. I don't know. I have tried to swap sources of internet communication, network communication, as a matter of fact, but I don't know why my voice
I,
is
I
cracking.
think it's clear now. It's clearer now.
Okay,
So you
so
continue.
let me go back to the question. I said we are not dealing. We have extensively done on historical uh, side of Somaliland, and now want to talk about the contemporary issue.
Yeah.
Israel has recognized, and of course, uh, attracting global attention. Why some are saying that they are going to follow suit. Let's see what that portends for African geopolitics. The reaction, those who are for, those who are against, and those who are maintaining. Do you think is going to alter anything in Africa?
Okay. Thank you for the question. That's a very uh, big topic to look into, because African geopolitics is a very critical yet dynamic one to look into. First of all, we have to, when we talk about this Somaliland's recognition by Israel and the implications to African geopolitics, especially the countries that have secessionist movements or regions are asking for, self-independence. From that standpoint, we would see that most African nations who have responded, especially condemning this Israel's recognition, have pockets of their regions, part of their regions, seeking for self-determination, just like Somaliland. For example, you have Nigeria, you have the Somalia itself, Somalia government.
You have where you also have people seeking for self-determination in Nigeria.
You have Algeria too. You have Algeria. So there are factors, political factors that are, uh, predicating Africa's geopolitics. One of those factors is Western interest, or should I say, colonial legacy in Africa. Most of these countries that have rushed to condemn Israel's recognition of Somaliland, we are not driven by self-principle or respect to, should I say, sovereignty, territorial integrity of Somalia. No, they were all pushed because there are Western interests behind their, rash condemnation of the. From my own point of view, so these countries are not, exhibiting what we all believe, that every African country should champion Pan-Africanism. In Pan-Africanism, if If two cannot agree, they should separate. They should stay on their own. In Pan-Africanism, we want a free Africa. So we cannot talk about Pan-Africanism and be, standing against people that want to stay on their own. Cultural mutual people that want to stay on their own. Because when you look at the issue of Somalia, there is evidence of cultural incompatibility. When two people cannot stay together, when they cannot understand themselves, when they are not of the same ideology, very important. These people are Sharia-based, ideological. These people are liberally ideological. So they cannot coexist. The government will be loop-sided. So this is the area where Pan-Africanism looks into, must stand on. But these African nations who have rushed to condemn Somaliland's Israeli recognition, we are acting, or acted based on the impulse of Western control, because they are afraid to lose, or to have their colonial borders threatened. For example, Nigeria. So we understand that as a turning point in Africa, that if Somaliland can get what they want, despite opposition from Africa, from her neighbors, Egypt, Algeria.
Yeah.
So exactly, other nations can borrow from them those principles, those approaches, to get what they really want from from their oppressive or hostile entity. So the geopolitics in Africa, when you look at the Horn of Africa, what has happened in Somaliland now and today, and what is happening in the Sahel, you understand that what is important in Africa to say that Africa is free is when we have a group of people who share the same culture, who are culturally compatible. That is how we can get a free nation. That is how we can get stability in Africa, if I should say that. For us to have stability in Africa, we must have culturally compatible nations. Because when you look at the current structure of Africa, the current entities called countries in Africa, jam-packed together by colonial administrations, past colonial
organic.
yeah.
Of course, inorganic entity.
Exactly. You find out that they are culturally incompatible.
Exactly. Very,
Just
very
like
important.
you have Christian, you have Muslim, you have, incompatible. They can't join. They are just like water and oil. They can't mix together. So the geopolitics in Africa, we need to understand we need to choose our standpoint, our moral background. Are we standing on self-determination for Pan-Africanism to stand, to grow, to free Africa from the shackles of imperialism? Or are we going to continue to maintain colonial legacies, to serve colonial interests in obstructing or frustrating the organic formation of nations in Africa? So that is what we have to look into and keep monitoring as geopolitics in Africa continues to evolve over time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mazi. And I think you have really done a whole lot of justice to the topic and the questions. These are really. We will come to then monitor event schedule as well, where we'll now look at, because reactions are still coming up, those for, those against, and those who are maintaining neutrality. But I can assure all our listeners that the essence of seeing this hysterical across the African region is as a result of status of that organization. Imagine Nigeria had recognized or been the first country to recognize Somaliland, I don't think Nigeria, don't think anybody can take that. And the Mazi Kelechi, that also points to the fact that a country can be geographically demographically uh, vast, but class potential quality is obvious. Because why are people taking first unilateral recognition to Syria? Why is this, outburst? I understand that irrespective of what like Israel has a case and consolidate that. That's why you see this outburst to Islamic organizations and all the rest of them. Why
Yeah.
is this worried? Just imagine Nigeria that recognized Somalia. Do you think they would have had an outburst? But not, because people understand what power push is all about as far as international is.
Yes.
So Israel getting interest, advance and project interest in African continent and our story. And I think everybody because her power, the power push, she possesses. So we don't and also come back looking at as evolving. Then we also create a platform where people can call in, ask their questions, and also. So Mazi, I would want uh, your final message before we come.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mazi.
Yeah.
My final words, I would want to end it with, giving us some ingredients that we can take home. When our leader broadcast, he will always say, "Come with your pen and paper," so that you can, give witness to attending his broadcast. I want us to take note of some ingredient that can help us if we maintain our peaceful approach, because tonight's topic is centered on what we can learn from the historical similarities, Somaliland and Biafra shares, to forge our quest, or for our self-independence. And, so I have here what I listed, what I mean by ingredients for actualizing our agitation, our quest is, despite us having or using peaceful approach, not engaging in violent agitation, that is a good point. But what are you doing to get it? That's international attention you are looking for. So for us to get it, for us to get there, for us to continue, we must have these 3 things or 5 things, consistently. One is stability. Stability. We must have a stable territory. Security-wise, that is why there must be peace and security in Biafra land. For the international community, for any government to take you serious, your territory must be secured. Just like we can learn from the Somalilanders. They secured their place, their region, they protected their people. Even after fighting wars, civil war, and declaring self-independence, they protected their people. So they ensured stability. That is why Israel could say, okay, you people are peaceful people. You people are good people. Let us look into your matter. Let us see how we can work together. Let us see how we can recognize you and partner with you to meet our own interests. We serve your own interests, you serve our own interests. So stability is key. For us to get Biafra, we must have stability in Biafra land, peace and security. That's number 1. Then number 2 is viable economy. If we want to get Biafra, we must provide enabling environment for our economy to grow, not to depreciate. That is why violent agitation is ruled out. You understand? So having a peaceful and stable, secured territory will enable economic growth. So when we have these two, what next do we have? We must have a committed, patriotic, strong government or leadership, however you want to put it, whether a government or a leadership. Just like we have an IPOB, you have a strong leadership, committed leadership that secures our people. You have Eastern Security managed by the leadership of IPOB, who oversees the protection, not just the protection of life of Biafrans. That's number one, stability, securing the territory. You have, you also increase or enable an economic viable environment for your economy to thrive. We now campaign, tell our people to come back home and invest, because again, IPOB provided an enabling environment by securing our region, the East. So that is why we can, when you count one, you can then count two, then you count three. And they are all interrelated. So I don't know if I'm taking time, but please permit me.
Yeah, finish up the point. They are very important.
The next point is global awareness. While we maintain a stable territory, an economic viable environment, and a committed leadership, we must also increase our global awareness. So when we increase our global awareness, we can attract people who will say, okay, they will look at your territory, they will say, oh, you people are stable, you people have economy, they can come in and invest, to put their own interest, to put their own money into your country, into your territory. They look, to see how or where they can invest. What do you have? What natural resources do you have? How stable is your environment to tap into those resources? So these are what matters. And the government or the leadership you have, they will test you. They will look at you if you are these scammers, ndị woto, the media cycles, the natural output. Here is a picture, to get validation. Are you committed to providing governance to your people? These are what matters. These are what the leadership of IPOB has been providing for our people, has been doing, has been, staging the gap despite the ineptitude of Eastern governors and politicians. So the last ingredient that we need to sustain to get what the Somalilanders have gotten for themselves is extensive lobbying. Likewise, we are doing our campaign, protests, petitioning global governments, institutions. We need to, put more effort into lobbying, which all these things I am mentioning, IPOB leadership, they are 100%, doing all these things. As we speak, we are lobbying, we are moving in, we are meeting people, going places, very, meeting reputable government that can, show interest into our cause and recognize us. So these are areas that if we sustain them, our quest, we are not delusional. These are areas these are approaches, these are work that must be done. So, and this leadership are committed, are focused on ensuring that we meet these criteria, just like we have mentioned. Somaliland has met all these criteria and then attracted a superpower like Israel that has an interest to station their base or themselves in that region, that Horn of Africa, to curb or solve the Houthis problem in that region. So how are we going to present ourselves to be attractive to these foreign interests that will, look into our cause and solve our own problem, we solve their own problem? So this is my my closing remark. I thank you, Mazi, for having me. I thank you, our listeners, those who took their time to join us today, tonight. We must continue, as I always say, because there is no back to go. Like our leader will always say, we have crossed the Rubicon. we will do this again some other time. And from me from here, it is good night. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Mazi. I like I said earlier, this is really informative. You really just questions raised, and we owe you a lot of thanks tonight uh, for and it's a really important people need to understand that there are processes for attaining our dreams, just like the Rosto hypothesis or theories of development. You must follow the indices. Very, very important. So I want
Exactly.
to thank every single one of us that uh, those who have just certain point, those guys are all wonderful. We are going to just come back at a mutually agreed time where we also come back to look at other related topics, talk about it. Because we need to from ourselves. Very, very important. Because
Yes.
related with evolution, things that are happening. Yes, nature abhors vacuum. We don't inform us, somehow someone will inform us. That is just what it is. So I want to thank every one of us, and I want us most especially to thank the of the Kanu, the leadership movement who are doing well. You know, step up. Not an easy one, but they're doing a good job, I must say. Uh, and of course, every one of us, we are also contributing for what we are put. We must understand that uh, a journey of greatness. Every single one of us who are in the course for the pursuit of self-determination, you are noble. This is an and you must hold your shoulder high. From here, from me, I want to say good night and have a wonderful one.
Thank you.